Hola and welcome to the Get Down. I'm Ritzy P. In this episode's All Things Butterscotch segment with CEO and Managing Editor of Butterscotch Media, Cleve Mesidor, we'll discuss how education is still very critical to helping advance Web3 policymaking. And in this episode, our guest is Keiko Yoshino, Executive Director of Puerto Rico Blockchain Trade Association, where we'll be discussing her journey into crypto, the Act 60 tax incentive report, how she's contributing to Web3 education in Puerto Rico, and so much more. So now let's get into all things butterscotch with Cleve Mesidor. Hola, Cleve. How are you?
Hey, Ritzy, I'm good. Oh my God, I cannot believe it's already March.
I know. What happened? It was like the slowest beginning, and then now we're here. Cleve, there's a lot going on with butterscotch. Let's dive in. Please share a few of the recent highlights.
Yeah, I'm so excited because Butterscotch Media is now trademarked. We applied last year when we first incorporated Butterscotch, and now we received our official trademark. So
Yeah.
we have our brand protection. So that is amazing.
Congrats. Yeah.
Thanks. And then, Butterscotch, we're continuing this process of forming media partnerships, being a media partner for key events. And we were a media partner for this event called Diversity Across the Aisle. It was hosted by the group behind the effort to launch a Latino museum in Washington, D.C., and in coordination with Punch Bowl. So we're thrilled to have Butterscotch Media as a media partner, and the event was amazing.
Awesome. So what about what's happening on the policy front?
Oh my God. What isn't happening on the policy front? There's so much going on. Obviously, it's a new day, a new policy framework. This administration is approaching crypto policy very differently than the Biden administration did. One of the exciting things that's happened in Congress specifically is the Senate Banking Committee. They created their first ever subcommittee on digital assets, and they had their first hearing, which was very interesting. Obviously, it is led by Senator Cynthia Lummis. And on the Republican side, we also have the new Senator Bernie Romero, as well as, on the Democratic side, the ranking member is Senator Gallego. So we're very excited to have their leadership. But the first hearing was actually very interesting. A lot of talk, obviously, about the stablecoin bills that are rolling through Congress, and then what to expect for market structure. So those two pieces of legislation are very critical right now, especially when you look at, stablecoin. I actually attended a roundtable that was held by the Consumer Trade Association. They had, Congressman Brian Steele there, who leads the Financial Services Subcommittee on Digital Assets, Financial Technology, and Artificial Intelligence on the House side. And Congressman Steele, talked about the stablecoin bill on the House side. And then there's also one on the Senate side that is moving forward. And we've had Congresswoman Maxine Waters introduce a third stablecoin bill. So that bill is running through. Obviously, it's focused on payments and payments infrastructure. And for me, it's really about how do we ensure competitiveness for small businesses and entrepreneurs as we're talking about not just market structure, but also stablecoin infrastructure. And so for folks listening in, definitely tune in. You'll hear about, the Genius bill, which is the Senate bill that's moving forward, and then the Stable Act on the House side. And then again, Maxine Waters has introduced her piece. And part of Maxine Waters' piece is to introduce this conversation around consumer protection, and which I prefer to talk about risk mitigation. But at the end of the day, we're moving forward towards a regulatory framework for this space to ensure that we have the rules of the road for Web3 and DeFi.
Right. So, as you mentioned, you have a unique policy position that should focus on risk mitigation and not consumer protection. So, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so we know how consumer protection has been approached, right? Especially by Democrats for people like especially Senator Elizabeth Warren. Consumer protection has equated to patriarchy for the most part. It's been used to keep marginalized people out, right? Consumer protection has said, well, this is for rich people. This is for people who we actually think are intelligent. And for you, we're going to protect you from the traditional financial market. We're going to make it so easy because we're protecting you. When what should be the focus is risk mitigation. And that's something that all consumers need, not just people who have been marginalized. So if we go beyond patriarchy, beyond this whole sense of protecting people and making sure that they can't build wealth, how do we ensure that there's risk mitigation as part of the conversation? Absolutely. We need to combat scams, period, full stop. But we also need to ensure there's financial education. We also need to make sure that when we're talking about, digital assets, that financial institutions like credit unions, like community banks, like minority banks are also part of the conversation because those are the institutions that can offer risk mitigation services that will make sure consumers have resources to actually mitigate when issues occur. So I do think that on the Democratic and Republican side, there needs to be not just a change in language, but a change in approach. Right? We can combat scams for everyone. We should ensure there's financial education for everyone. But we also need to make sure that all financial institutions, not just Wall Street, not just the big banks, but the community banks, minority banks, the credit unions that everyday people trust, though all of these institutions offer the wealth of financial instruments that should be accessible to everyone.
Yes, please believe. I love that. I love that. Continuing, it's March, it's Women's Herstory, Her Story Month. Women have a deep bench in Web3 and DeFi. So, let's talk about what's happening.
Yeah, as you know, this is a big month where we celebrate women across all sectors, but certainly women in emerging tech, women in Web3. And we know that March 8th is International Women's Day, which is a big piece, especially for emerging tech like Web3 and DeFi that are borderless, right? Where we actually look at everybody across the gamut. And, I was very disappointed, as you know, during the last campaign where there was this conversation around crypto and Black men specifically. And I'm concerned that that has had legs because I've heard people talking about crypto and really hearing from Black and Latino men. And I think we have to make sure that we get back on track. Absolutely, communities of color are the earliest adapters of crypto and continue to be the largest adapters. But that is not just men, right? It's also women. It's also young people. It's also working class people. So, historically, we've had this approach where women weren't really in tech, right? And then we saw that divide in big tech where there is a lack of women participating, becoming developers, becoming innovators, becoming builders. And we're still at the starting line for Web3 and DeFi. And we have to make sure that women know this is a space for them. Most of the emerging technologies, the applications are drag and drop. We know that you don't need to be technical. So many women are looking at new avenues for their professional development, and they should be looking at Web3 and DeFi. But I'm excited about a lot of the events I've seen coming up, lots of celebrations, lots of, opportunities to focus on some dynamic women who are building some dope stuff. So very excited.
Yeah, for sure. And, if you want to learn more about some amazing women that are in this space, please make sure to go listen to previous episodes of this podcast because we showcase it. This is the place. And yes, we have to make a bigger effort to showcase the women that are building, entering the space, that really have been in the space for a long time. People like yourself, Cleve. So, yeah, definitely. And also, this whole team, if you guys could see this end of it, it's all women here. All women and all women of color. Please believe it. So let's shift your efforts to advance thought leadership. What's your schedule, Cleve?
Well, we were just talking about March being Women's Her Story Month. and all of the activities around National Women's Day. But there's also a lot of activity going on in March period. I will be speaking at FinTech Meetup, which is a big FinTech conference that happens every year. It's in Vegas the week of March 10. I'm speaking about policy there. Excited for this conversation, especially in this new political environment. And I'm also excited. I'll be speaking at the end of the month, March 25th to 26th, at the Legislative Summit for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. They're doing a session on payments, and there's going to be, among the speakers, is somebody from Cash App and others, especially in this framework as we're debating, the stablecoin bill where payments is so core to that conversation. I'm excited to be moderating that for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. And we have so many other activities happening within the crypto space as well. I think the Bitcoin Policy Summit will be happening there as well this month. So excited to continue this journey on thought leadership to make sure we're having the right conversations and making sure that people understand, the issues that are being advanced and the policies that might affect them.
Fantastic. You're always busy. I don't know how you do it, but it's great that there's definitely representation of women of color in these spaces, at these conferences, at these events. So thank you so much for doing that. So you know today's podcast guest, Keiko Yoshino, well. How have you two worked in today's crypto?
Oh my God, Keiko is amazing. And we first came together years ago when she was thinking about creating the Puerto Rico Blockchain Association. And I was obviously leading the Blockchain Foundation in coordination with folks at the Blockchain Association who connected Keiko to me. And since she created the Puerto Rico Blockchain Trade Association, we've stayed in touch. We've actually done a few partnerships through the Blockchain Foundation. And also, I just spoke in Puerto Rico during her conference that was just, oh my God, last month. It felt like years ago because well, 2 months ago. Yeah, because it was in January. But Keiko has been doing amazing work. And when we talk about education being so critical, so important, Keiko has really approached that as her North Star in Puerto Rico, making sure we're creating educational materials in Spanish, making sure we're engaging academic institutions, getting into the community. So, and she's been part of our congressional briefing of women of color in blockchain. The three of us, you, me, Ritzy, and Keiko, were in DC in December for that conference, which was amazing. And so excited to have her on the show. Excited for the conversation that the two of you will have. Going back to this whole thing, there's so many amazing men doing great things, but we want to make sure that in an industry where crypto bros definitely dominate the media, are often the focus, that we, really celebrate and hold up women who are leading on policy, on thought leadership, who are making sure that education is first, and we're increasing access by informing people and making sure they have access to trusted content.
I love that. Yes, because as women, we build differently. And it's exciting to see what's happening and having these amazing conversations with leaders in the space that happen to be women. So thank you so much, Cleve. I look forward to our next discussion about all things butterscotch. Let's welcome our butterscotch queen, Keiko Yoshino, Executive Director of the Puerto Rico Blockchain Trade Association. Keiko is a crisis management attorney specializing in strategic communications and government affairs. Based in Puerto Rico, she helps startups and emerging tech companies navigate compliance and operations. As the founder of the Puerto Rico Blockchain Trade Association, she's leading Web3 adoption through education, advocacy, and partnerships with government agencies and universities. She's also created CryptoCurious, an educational program making Web3 more accessible. Additionally, she spearheads Act 60 tax incentive education with the forthcoming guidebook on Puerto Rico's tax benefits. Before this, she spent nearly 7 years in public service in D.C., including at the D.C. Housing Authority, shaping economic development and housing policy. Keiko graduated cum laude from Valparaiso Law School and holds a BA in political science and anthropology from Mount Holyoke College. Welcome, Keiko. Thank you for being here today. How are you?
Amazing. So excited to be here.
It's great to connect after the 5th annual congressional briefing of women of color in blockchain. I'm excited to dive into our convo. So please tell us about your journey into crypto and why you started the Puerto Rico Blockchain Trade Association.
Great question. My journey started nearly 4 years ago to the day. That tomorrow is actually the anniversary of
Happy
my
early anniversary.
moved to Puerto Rico 40 years ago. I had visited, I loved it, and I was like, "You know what? It was during COVID. It was
Mhm.
cold in DC. I wanted to start fresh. So I moved to Puerto Rico with no Spanish, no friends, no job, no plan really. And I was just like, I felt so welcomed by the people when I was visiting. It had that small town feel and I grew up in a small town in upstate New
Mm.
York. So it felt like home. So I moved, and then someone told me to go to Crypto Mondays and said that there'd be a lot of English speakers there and I could make some friends. And I was like, okay, I'll go. And I don't know what crypto, Bitcoin, any of this is, right? And so I walk in and it's all white men. It's 30-year-old guys, it's 60-year-old guys. There's one Puerto Rican guy. And he comes up to me and we're talking. I'm like, hey, this is cool. I don't know what Bitcoin ATMs are or what the guy's talking about because he's using all these acronyms. I was like, "So, where are the women and where are the locals? Because you seem to be the only one." And his name was Giovanni Mendez, and he's a crypto tax attorney in Puerto Rico, and he knew everybody because he does everyone's Act 60 and crypto taxes. So I was like, "Okay, well, tell me." He's like, "Oh, they don't usually come." I was like, "Well, are they invited?" He goes, "It's not that they're disinvited. It's like that people don't know about it." And I was like, okay, I haven't been here very long, but the reputation is that it's very bro-y industry. I don't, like, how do people learn and how do we make this more inclusive? He's like, I don't know. I was like, is there a group? Is there an organization? And they're like, no. And I was like, I have an idea. Because in DC, there's an association for everything.
You're right.
I used to meet with them all the time as a legislative director, and I was like, "Okay, we should probably get one in Puerto Rico." And I was like, "So how do we learn about this? Like, what book should I buy?" And this was in 2021. And they're like, "No, we watch YouTube videos." And I was like, "Well, now I see why you have a problem with adoption. Like, this isn't ready to go." So I wrote a business proposal in a week and went to Giovanni, introduced me to some of his clients, and they were like, "Yeah, let's start this." I wanted to do a trade association that was focused in education and in community outreach because I felt like that was really what was lacking, and that's what was the beginning of CryptoCurious. So I made basically a law outline and broke it into 4 modules: why Web3 and why is it important, what is Bitcoin, what are smart contracts, and what is an NFT. And then I had people in the community that were like OGs that had moved to the island teach, and we had 70 Puerto Ricans show up. And I was like, okay, great,
Nice.
there's some interest here. So then we translated it into Spanish, and then I had people that were Puerto Ricans teach it in Spanish and had the same response. So fast forward, I was able to get a full-time employee to do community education and outreach that was Puerto Rican woman, Shirley, and she helped me build out a larger program, and we were doing a meetup every week. Unfortunately, due to the bear market, I wasn't able to keep her and there wasn't sustainable funding. We learned a lot. We put on conferences, we built partnerships with associations and universities and met with government agencies and introduced legislation and did all the things to try to make friends and change hearts and minds about what blockchain was.
That's an amazing story because you were just like, there's a void here. Where are the locals? Which is so important, right? Like you're going to another country and you're trying to build something and you're getting all these tax benefits, but where are the locals? They need to know about what's happening so they can enter the space. So I love that that's the entry into the space. And I thought, because I didn't know. I thought that you went there already knowing about Web3 and crypto. So this is even extra fascinating. So now you and your team just hosted the 3rd annual Biddle Here conference. Butterscotch's own Cleve Mesidor was a speaker and raved about the conference. So for those who could not make it, please share some insights and highlights.
Definitely. No, this was amazing. This is our 3rd year doing it. Cleve has come to every single one and been on stage. We're so delighted that she makes the trip in from DC. Our goal with Biddle here is to change hearts and minds. We want to make crypto inclusive and accessible. And this is a friendly way and an environment for people to get like their first bit of understanding of what is this space. I like to say it's more of a buttoned up version. It's not a typical crypto conference. It's not very big. It's usually just a couple hundred to a few hundred people. And we have like world-class speakers like Cleve come, Veronica McGregor came from Exodus, Jonathan Jocham from Kraken, Ron Hammond from the BA, Sean Tabrizi from Polkadot, Hannah Rosenberg from the Lightning Network. It was a mix of people that were on island, that came from the mainland. And we had students and universities and government officials, and the Secretary of Economic Development spoke and his commitment to bolstering blockchain technology and closing the digital divide. So it's a all around very exciting experience.
That's amazing. So there were a few special announcements at the conference. So let's start with the federal grant and then discuss the milestone regarding Act 60 tax report.
Absolutely. So we applied for the NTIA Digital Literacy Grant. It's an $11.8 million grant put out by the Department of Commerce with the goal to close the digital divide in the United States. Every state was required to put together a state plan, and then everyone at the states was able or welcomed to apply for up to $12 million over the course of 4 years. And we brought together 9 partners, including universities and in high schools with different ideas. Everyone had their own little sub-grantee initiative that they were focused on. One nonprofit wanted to do AI and incorporate and teach teachers and students how to bring tech into the classroom more. Some schools didn't have computers and just wanted to buy computers. There was an art school that didn't have Adobe Illustrator licenses because it was too expensive. We had money in the budget to bring professors and subject matter experts from wherever to hire to train the teachers, to teach the teachers method and make it like fellowships for professors in the summer so that they could learn. Professors make $2,000 a course. So they teach several courses, but again, not very high paying. So it's hard to get new curriculum in there. And that was our grant. And we announced that we received a recommendation letter from the NTIA, and we're now waiting for the Department of Commerce to issue an award letter. When we sign the award letter, then hopefully the funds will be released. But everything's kind of paused, and I hear this is the same everywhere. So
That's fantastic. Amazing. The impact that you're having on the island. So I want to talk more about, you mentioned a little bit earlier about CryptoCurious and it's an community outreach initiative to help Web3 be accessible to Puerto Ricans, to those that are native to the island. What has been some other highlights and impact that CryptoCurious has brought into the island?
sure, we've had, like I said, 3 conferences and 2 blockchain weeks, dozens of MOUs, and we've reached over 7,000 people with over 120 meetups in the existence of 3.5 years. The people that were showing up ranged from abuelas to high school kids to moms that are like, my kid's talking about Bitcoin. Is this a scam? Like, it's across the board. And it's been really interesting getting to meet people in the community that are interested, that were like, I didn't know about this, but this is really cool. Like, they really identify with this Web3 decentralized of self-sovereignty, really echoed and resonated.
Right. No, yeah. I think in the All Things Butterscotch for this episode, Cleve talks about the importance of education when it comes to policymaking, but education in general when it comes to the space, right? Education and access, and you're bringing that to the island. So, there is a vibrant Web3 community in Puerto Rico. Who are 2 of your favorite founders?
There's so many. Alana Mediavilla. She is a Puerto Rican filmmaker, founder of Campo Libre, and is director of the documentary Dirty Coin that won awards, and the Stranded, a Bitcoin mining short. The other one I would say is Lise Isabel. She is the first Puerto Rican NFT fashion designer.
That's amazing. We'll definitely have to look into them. So finally, you have been appointed to the board of directors for Blockchain Foundation, along with our very own Cleve Mesidor. What is your vision for the foundation?
I'm delighted to be part of an amazing team. Wherever Cleve goes, no questions asked, I'll join her. I'm happy to be part of it and excited to expand. I want to bring CryptoCurious to a larger audience. And I think through partnerships, we can get more education out there. There's no need to recreate the wheel. I think a lot of it is, again, meeting people where they're at. And whether it's in English or in Spanish or their native language, education is critical. So I really admire the work the Blockchain Foundation's done and hope to continue to do it.
Congratulations. I can't wait to see, adding you to an already amazing board, to this foundation, what the impacts that's going to bring. So as you wrap it up, is there anything you want to compel the audience to consider?
Come biddle in Puerto Rico. We have amazing tax incentives on www.prblockchain.org. L60 is the name of our tax incentives. We have 73, and they 2% is a tax incentive to start a new business in Puerto Rico. If you want to teach, you want to set up a business, you want to relocate, you want to visit, you want to sponsor an event, reach out to me, send me an email, keiko@prblockchain.org. We'd love to have more people come to Puerto Rico and viddle with us.
Awesome. And finally, tell us a fun fact that most people don't know about you.
Well, you already found out that I didn't know anything about blockchain 40 years ago. I hold a first-degree black belt in Shotokan Karate.
What? Deadly. Don't mess with Keiko. Don't mess with Keiko. Okay, so you mentioned the email. That's a good way to reach you. You mentioned some websites. What's some other ways to reach you personally?
You can reach out on our socials, PR Blockchain 1 on Twitter. We have a LinkedIn. We have Instagram, Facebook. I have a zero inbox policy, so email is definitely by far the best way to reach me. And so again, that's Keiko, Keiko, @prblockchain.org.
Awesome. Well, muchísimas gracias, Keiko, for joining us today. And special thanks to our butterscotch queens and kings out there for joining this conversation. And be sure to check out all of the Get Down episodes on your favorite platforms. Thank you. Until next timers.